I remember a dunk that made me feel the same way that I felt when I saw Yoli Childs last night. It was Mike Hall against Air Force. It was.
And who was the head ball coach for
It
that one?
was Steve Cleveland, who joins us now in Studio B. Coach, I mean, that's probably the closest thing I can remember. When I saw Yoli go up and throw that thing down, I was like, man, Mike Hall against Air Force pulled me out of my seat.
You know what? I can remember a couple others. Travis Hansen had a couple of amazing dunks, as well as Terrell Leday in the Mountain West tournament. He hit one against Air Force, in fact, and late in the game that really changed the turn. So, but Yoli's last night was really impressive.
That was awesome.
It was awesome.
So we're talking about what we think we know about BYU hoops, and it's early, but you've seen this team during the summer practice and into the fall now. What do you think you know about this team?
I would agree with what you both said. Offensively, in just talking to the coaching staff, they have high major offensive talent. And certainly defensively they're going to grow and develop. But I like that first and foremost. They have a lot of people who can make baskets. And I would also concur, I hate to give you too much credit here today, but I would also concur that they are very unselfish. And I think that's been something that they've been working on from the time the season ended last year, was that we're all in. And as you said, you can look at expressions on players' faces sometimes and get a little bit pouty or a little bit jealous. And, there's none of that. They're together, they're all in, they're making the extra pass and one more. And I think that LJ last night kind of showed us a little, just a smidgen of what it's going to be like, and as a pass-first point guard. And I think that certainly Elijah, who I've seen play a lot before he got hurt, has the ability to do that well. So those are things I really like offensively. And I do believe that because they're young sometimes and the pace they play, they're going to be mistakes. But I think defensively, still on-ball defense, stopping dribble penetration, and making sure that, because we're gonna be at a disadvantage at times. We're gonna play against quickness, and people are gonna beat you off the dribble. The key thing is, where's the help? And if we're out hugging our guys, and that's not working, And I know at the beginning of that game last night, 18 of the first 23 points by BYU Hawaii was penetration to the hole. And then they decided to shoot 33s in the second half.
Yeah, not a good decision.
That started the break, and then it was over. But that's one thing that I know that the coaching staff's aware of. Anybody that watches can see that, and I think that they'll get better.
Steve Cleveland with us in Studio B. You mentioned LJ Rose. He's a guy that BYU is hoping can step in right away as a graduate transfer and make an immediate impact, potentially as a starter. So when you're looking at what BYU puts on the floor on Monday, is LJ Rose part of that starting five? In fact, who's your starting five on Monday?
I think your starting five was probably right on.
Steve, I love this interview so far with you. This is great.
LJ, I think, will be there. I think Elijah down the road that's going to be his position. I think LJ can play any of the three positions. And I think the two of them together defensively is also a really positive. I think you're going to see that in late game situations where they need to get stops, that they play together. But right now, I think it would be LJ, and then certainly TJ and Nick and Davis and Mika inside. But I think the one thing that has been established by a fifth-year senior who's been in two outstanding basketball programs, everybody tells me he's great in the locker room. That's what his former coach is. He's great in the locker room, and you know what? He's great on the floor. And he's a pass-first point guard right now. And I think the sign of a really good team is one who makes a side-to-side pass, he's open, and he throws one more, and he's even more open. And we'll talk a little bit about the bigs in a moment, but yeah, that's the group I like as well.
You mentioned some things that you have questions about. What's the biggest question mark with this team? Is it defense?
Well, I think that in order for them to, like you said, be a championship team, and not only they're an NC2A type team. There's no question about that. But I think that their goal right now, besides getting the NC2As, is to win the WCC. And I think that athletically, as you mentioned, I think they have that. I think they are a more patient team. Nick, I've been so impressed with Nick in the two exhibition games, even watching him at practice. We know that he can get a shot off at any time off the dribble, as probably TJ can too. But they're deferring, and they're playing inside out. And I think that's one thing that, in the past, it's been a long time since we've had guys that can play back to the basket, come inside, get a double team, kick it back out. And I think that's what makes this team different and more special, is that going inside out it creates problems for teams. And where they've not been able to do that, as you mentioned earlier, talking about they had to do a lot off the dribble. They're not going to have to do as much off the dribble unless it's in transition.
I think that's less taxing mentally and physically on players when you can move the ball with the pass, which should be a benefit to a team like BYU.
Oh, no question. And this is a pretty cerebral group, and they're together. You know, I think that the one I've been in with them and watched them in practice, probably watched 6 or 7 practices. They're very together, and there are no agendas here. And I've watched a lot of basketball teams, and you can sometimes see that people have agendas. And people get a little bit moody if that agenda is not being, that's not happening here. And I credit the coaching staff, to be honest with you, that they've done an amazing job bringing this group together and letting them know that they've got the same goals that the public has. And I think that's important to understand, that, you know, there's expectations. They know there are expectations. LJ said this in his interview with you. This is a coachable group.
Yeah.
It's a very coachable group. And because they want the same thing that Coach Rose wants and his staff, that you all want, and that Cougar Nation wants. And that is not only going to the NCAA tournament, but to also win the WCC.
Yeah, and that's something BYU hasn't done, which is pretty crazy. As good as BYU's been, they haven't won the league. Okay, so this team is really led by a lot of freshmen and sophomores. I mean, the vast majority are underclassmen. Where do you think initially we'll see the youth come out for BYU?
Well, it starts with Yoli. I mean, I think that you're going to see him make mistakes, but his ceiling, his upside is incredible. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him play a major role in this game, with this team in mid-February, late February, early March. I mean, he has that. Now, he doesn't need to start, and I don't think it's an issue with him. And I think Davis starting as a senior is a good thing, but Yoli's going to have a significant role. Will he make some mistakes in the process? Yes. I think Bale and Leifson both are really good shooters if their feet are squared and they're ready. I also know that there's some liabilities defensively. I think Bale probably a little more athletic than Leifson, but they're both really savvy basketball-wise. They're very unselfish. They understand the game. But when you get into guys that are going to get up and lock into them, they're going to have to be strong with the ball. Those are things that I could see could be a little bit troublesome.
What impresses you most about the BYU bigs this year compared to a year they're coming off when basically it was just Kyle Davis that was the predominant post scorer last year?
Well, I loved Kyle in the fact that he was one of the rare post players. Really, you mentioned it earlier. There aren't a lot of back-to-the-basket guys anymore. Everybody wants to face up and play Euro ball and shoot the three. But Kyle Davis does that. Mika does it better. And that's no disrespect to Kyle, because I think he's been wonderful. But Mika can do a lot of different things there. Now, he's not being asked right now to step out and knock 17-footers down, but his back-to-the-basket moves are really solid, whether it's over the left shoulder or right shoulder. And I think that he's going to be a load for people that defend. When it comes to defending BYU, they're going to start there. Now, they know that Nick is capable of going off and dropping 30, as well as probably TJ will be too down the road. But when you defend BYU now, you have to start with Mika in the post. And, the percentages, he's going to get to the free throw line a lot. Let's just go to Yoli just for a moment. I don't think his back-to-the-basket moves right now are as developed as they will be. But when he faces up and he is so athletic that he can go by you, I think that's something that Mika and Kyle can't do. And I like the fact that he brings that there. Plus, he runs the floor. He's active. And his vertical is quick. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not how high you jump. It's how quick you jump. It's the first one to the ball.
He's Tigger.
Yeah, he is. He's got quick hops. And when he gets there, he can finish around the basket. And it's not that Mika and Kyle and others can't jump, but he's got a special attribute that you can't teach or coach.
Yeah.
Spencer used to have that.
I used to be springy,
He
right?
used to be like Yoli Childs. Do you see this team jumping out quickly, like having a nice start to the season, or do you think because of the youth, there might be a slip-up or two that maybe we don't see because of youth?
Looking at the schedule, I mean, there could be. I agree with you, both of you, that Princeton is going to test their ability to defend. I personally think that they will prepare man-to-man. But I also believe that we're going to see some 1-3-1 zone or some 2-3 zone, because chasing those guys and those cuts for a young team to try to guard that, really difficult. Joe Scott at Air Force, we played them 4 or 5 years when they were really good.
Yeah.
Okay, when they were really good.
They were ranked.
And that was a nightmare to prepare for. And you could teach, and you can't teach it all, so you teach them 2 or 3 things, and then you get back to the zone. But, when you're playing them at home, they're knocking threes down. I don't know much about Princeton right now. Maybe we'll talk more about that next week. But my thinking is that they probably shoot the ball pretty well, and it will be maybe their most difficult test in the preseason.
It's Cleveland in Studio B right now. Still have that T-shirt, by the way, Coach.
I got to tell you a quick story. I'm on my mission. Last Sunday on my mission, guy comes to me from a ward. I don't know who he is. He says, I want to give you something. Gave me a Cleveland T-shirt. And I'm going to give it to you as long as I can take a picture with you. I said, not a problem.
Coach, great
That's
stuff. We
awesome.
look forward to doing this quite often moving forward.
Great to be with both of you.
The former head coach, Steve Cleveland, dropping bits of knowledge in Studio B.
And he agreed with us, so I love Cleveland coming in today.
Wait
Steve's
till he
great.
disagrees with us.